Alright, so yesterday was a pretty huge day for horror game news. Summer Game Fest had some big horror titles on display for us. We finally got the confirmation of Resident Evil Veronica, but more importantly, at least in my opinion, we got the first full trailer for Alien Isolation 2. Not only that, but the developers came out and gave us some pretty solid confirmations, answering some of our biggest questions from the last trailer. So this new trailer opens up with a few shots of the planet that the second game is going to take place on. We know this is a Weyland-Yutani colony world, and later on we do get a confirmation that this is not Hadley's Hope as some people were speculating. This new colony is called Kurasaki Station. We pretty much already knew this, since Hadley's Hope was completely barren by the time of the Aliens movie, yet this planet does have some flora on it. Considering that this game series takes place before Aliens, it wouldn't make sense for Hadley's Hope to have trees on it. But the planet does share some similarities. This one also seems to be a desolate, harsh world. I am sure the weather here is going to play into the tension, lots of rain and thunder to mask the sounds of the Xenomorphs. We then get a sneak preview of this new colony. Like all of Weyland-Yutani's colonies, it does look like they have some pretty high-tech stuff, although I'm sure none of it is actually used for the benefit of the colonists. We also get a small glimpse of the scale of this place. Now it's hard to tell since we don't really get a full view, but it does seem like this place is going to be pretty big, and we will be traveling between areas on the outside as well. This does make me wonder how they're going to use a threat of the Xenomorph. Perhaps they're going to be roaming around the outside areas, but I do wonder how they're going to increase the tension on these outside areas that aren't quite as claustrophobic as the first game. We then get our first look at a crashed vessel. Now this is likely the cause of the outbreak on Kurasaki, but most interestingly, this ties directly back to Alien Isolation 1. As we see more of the interior, you can see that this is the Gemini Exoplanet Solutions module, the KG-348 research lab, the very one that Amanda Ripley ejected into space during the first game. To refresh your memory, this was when Amanda Ripley was still under the impression that there was only one Xenomorph aboard Sevastopol Station. Her plan was to eject the entire lab with the Xenomorph inside, therefore removing the danger to the station. While she did succeed, she later learns that there was a whole hive of Xenomorphs on the station. So not only did this do absolutely nothing to stop the danger, but it now seems that this plan actively caused an outbreak on an unsuspecting colony. I'm sure this will be something that Amanda feels some personal guilt for during the game. Now, just as an aside here, we don't yet know exactly how this causes an outbreak on Kurasaki. Alien lore varies greatly with how the Xenomorphs reproduce. The original movie had a deleted scene where Dallas was being turned into an egg. The second movie added the queen. Some of the books state that a lone Xenomorph can morph into a queen if there are no others nearby. We also know that there was a queen on board Sevastopol, so it's possible that she somehow survived and made it onto the planet. It's also possible that this lab contained eggs that we just don't know about. Gemini were researching the alien after the initial outbreak on the station. Either way, this trailer definitely seems to be hinting that this lab was the source of the outbreak here, unless Weyland-Yutani were up to their usual tricks. Speaking of Weyland-Yutani, we hear a woman talking in Japanese. This is a huge clue that this is someone from Wei-Yu. That company was founded by Ms. Yutani, and the lore suggests that it is always passed down through the family. This character appears to be talking to Amanda Ripley. We get a small glimpse of what seem to be her eyes later, and what sounds like her voice.
Yes. I understand.
But the context here suggests that Amanda will indeed be returning and most likely the playable character. The mystery woman talks about how the company doesn't tolerate expensive mistakes. This is actually kind of funny since Wei-Yu fails constantly throughout the centuries, mostly due to the Ripley family, but they never actually succeed with any of their grand plans regarding the Xenomorph. For a company that is so solely focused on profit, it does seem kind of hilarious that they wasted so much money and never actually end up with anything to show for it. But we know that Amanda was technically a Wei-Yu employee in the first game, so it seems like the company is giving her one final chance here. I am sure with an ulterior motive to use her to retrieve a Xenomorph sample. The trailer shows a very brief glimpse of the flamethrower. This was one of the iconic weapons of the movies that the first game also introduced, but the developers will later confirm that this is indeed a hint that the sequel is staying true to those survival horror roots. In fact, we see many returning elements such as flares, slow pressurized locks, and of course, vents. Nothing bad ever happens in vents, right? Something else that is returning are the working Joes. Well, at least we can see a damaged one. This one writhes around on the floor, perhaps without the AI mainframe to control it, it's now malfunctioning. Now this could be a story plot point. Characters in the movies have worked with broken synths before, but I wonder if this is a hint that we will encounter artificial persons as enemies once again. If you look very closely, you can see a hand reaching out in the darkness. I think this is telling us that there will be some survivors here, although I'm sure like in the first game they won't be in the best shape. The trailer ends with a small glimpse of a Xenomorph, recreating one of the iconic scenes from the movies. This does look stunning in modern graphics. Of course, this is a cinematic trailer, not a gameplay one, but it is awesome to see the Xeno being used as a horror icon once again. There are so many Alien games that use Xenomorphs as mindless cannon fodder, so I like what I see here. But as I said earlier, this trailer wasn't all that we got. Two developers came out on stage and gave us some huge confirmations, and honestly, they said exactly what I was hoping to hear. They specifically stated Alien Isolation 2 is going to be a survival horror game. Not only that, but they outright said it. The Xenomorphs in Alien Isolation 2 are once again going to be unkillable.
It's been 12 years since we released the first Alien Isolation, and we're continuing what we started, creating an authentic new chapter which builds on that core isolation experience of escaping the terrifying, unkillable, relentless alien.
I said in my last video that this is what truly sets Alien Isolation apart from all those other games. The Xenomorph being unkillable is a key component in the tension. Knowing you can only ever fend them off and that they will always be back, usually faster than you would like, is what makes them feel so threatening. Having to manage your ammunition, knowing that it is so precious, knowing that if you run out you will be completely defenseless against the Xenomorph, is part of what makes Alien Isolation great. As soon as you give players the ability to kill the Xenomorphs, you lose all of that. They go from being deadly stalker enemies to nothing better than zombies. Now, just a funny little aside here, they abbreviate Alien Isolation 2 to AI2. Now, part of me does wonder if that is them being cheeky and hinting that the Xenomorph AI from the first game is making a return. This is another thing that made them so scary. The Alien AI was very unpredictable because there were essentially two brains that each had an incomplete part of the picture, but they could only communicate with each other in a limited fashion. This meant that the alien was always hunting you, but never in a scripted or predictable way. Overall though, the key message from the developers here was that this game is staying true to the first one. The language they used, like desperate struggle, building on that core experience, and claustrophobic confines, they really did make it clear that they have resisted the temptation that so many bigger budget horror games fall prey to these days. So many horror games now lean into the action, many of them too far in my opinion. And honestly, it was so refreshing to see the devs talk about horror, survival horror, how terrifying it's going to be. In fact, I don't think they even mentioned the word action once. Genuinely huge credit to Creative Assembly here because I don't think they could have said it any more perfectly. And now I'm absolutely hyped for a true successor to one of the greatest horror games ever made. But those are just my opinions. Did I miss anything? Are you excited for this game? You know I will be covering it extensively when it drops, and of course covering any more news we get on it before then. Maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss those videos when I make them. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.